When I photograph, what I'm really doing is seeking answers to things.
If you want to be a better photographer, stand in front of more interesting stuff.
Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
And sorry,
What?
I'm already laughing. I
don't know.
No, I'm just like, it's episode 219 for the middle of November. Area code 4.
Area code 4, say it.
Northwest Indiana. And Gary and Hammond and Maryville and some other cities out there.
So, Michigan City.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Griffith and Highland and Portage.
Ogden Dunes. Yeah. Lake Village, Coots. Yeah, so we've done the area code thing is stuck because I want to thank our listener Justin Jones for buying us a coffee and saying, quote, "My favorite photography podcast is now also my favorite area code podcast. Hashtag keep the area code talk." So we're going with it, Justin. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Well, it was a joke. Now we're getting paid for it. Maybe this is how you get in the business.
Right. Right. We just, we came up with a thing. But does that mean now every episode we're going to have to figure out, is there an area code? Like, are all of our episode numbers going to be area codes? I mean, I can't imagine that.
Well, I'm waiting for the exotic ones like 808. Like that's Hawaii.
If we make it to 808,
right?
Episode 808, we're going to be like, doing it from.
We'll be very old.
Be like 2001. We'll be these like, reborn,
that's right,
flying fetuses.
The AI that we're also concerned about photography now.
We're going to
AI photography podcast hosts.
Yeah.
Which is actually not because, we have played with Notebook LM in Google and it's provided some pretty interesting content. So,
yeah, once they start, we're going to that's going to be our podcast in the future. We're just going to feed it and stuff and let, what were the names that we were giving them?
Dave had given them names.
Dave had given them names. Yeah. But now they're calling it a deep dive. The AI talks about stuff. Like I feed a lot of stuff into it and then we're going to do a deep dive on this and like, welcome to this deep dive. So they're actually beginning to have a name for themselves. But
I like how they call your name out. It's sort of like, and photographer Antonio Rosario. I'm like, photographer Ward Rosin. I'm like, ooh, I'm a photographer.
I'm famous, right?
Because someone said it out loud, not me. Has a certain artificial gravitas that makes you feel good.
Yeah. I like it. Actually, I was thinking like how Dave was giving us some ideas of how to incorporate some parts of that into this. And so I'm interested about it because I fed in Susan Sontag's On Photography into because you can upload PDFs.
Yeah. And
I did it into Notebook LM. And it was really an interesting conversation that the AI came back with. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was that book to me is still very dense. And like, it was nice to hear it parsed from in that point of view. What's the word? I can't come up with the word. Reduced into this discussion. Summarized or distilled. That's what I was trying to say.
Word.
Distilled. Yes, this is a good word. Mark, write that down. It's a good word. Excuse me. Excuse me for the S word. My pen just leaked all over me.
Oh no!
Look at that. Looks like my hands are like I've just murdered
a bird.
Opie. Yeah, so I'm going to put Opie down. Excuse me, go down. Go. I got a cat on my thing. And I'm just going to pat my hands dry. Sorry for that word. I might have to bleep it. Or I could leave it in. We said one little curse word.
Or you get the explicit tag. The only photography podcast on explicit tag.
Yeah. Oh, well, I might take it out. I don't know. Anyway, I fidget with, do not, here, this is a PSA for everybody. Do not fidget with a fountain pen. Okay. It's not a good thing.
Fountain pen is not a toy. It's like a lightsaber. It wields a lot of power.
Yes.
And don't play with it.
Don't play with it, lest you want to look like Hannibal Lecter with your hands here.
It's a more elegant weapon for a more civilized time.
Age. Yes. Anyway, that being said, what else? What's up with you?
My wife just got back from Japan visiting our daughter, and she's all full of pictures and samples of candy and odd food.
She's scouting for you? She's scouting for you?
Not really. She's the sightseer. Yeah. So she went all over the country and visited the sites with my daughter. And I'm just going to be like walking around the seedy streets of Tokyo mostly. That's what I'm looking forward to. And getting lost in the train stations and that sort of thing. That's what I plan to be doing.
All right, cool.
So it's good. So I have weird candy and different foods and little toys. I did get with the 16 days that she was there, I did get one gift. It was a key fob.
Oh, really?
From an oil manufacturer. It's the closest they could get to an underground car meet, I guess. I don't know.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
So it's this purple key fob. So I think I can do better when I go. I'll get some souvenirs.
Are you gonna look for any photography things there to purchase and bring back, or is it just going to be
Yeah, I'm thinking about small film cameras, maybe like a Canon half frame, that little half frame from the mid 60s that they had. A beautiful little thing.
Are you researching where you can find those?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Maybe an Olympus XA in mint condition with a flash. I think I'll get one of those. My daughter has Olympus Infinity stylus, and we did get a roll back from her before she moved to Japan, and those pictures turned out great.
The stylus is one of the best little cameras that ever was made, I think. That's the one that has the slidey front. The
slidey front, and before they put the zoom in it, I think. It's a 35 millimeter, 3.5 sharp, huge rear element on that thing.
Focuses fast, as I remember.
Yeah, focuses fast and didn't miss that much. I mean, judging by my daughter's pictures, they were fine.
And she took a...
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it took a beating, too. That camera could...
This one was my wife's, and we gave it to her before she went on her Australian adventure. Actually, before she finished university. And she's got the tail end of her university years and her trip to Australia, or her living in Australia. So that is cool. And so I'm looking forward to having an Olympus camera of that, previous ilk. I think it was late 70s, wasn't it? The XA, the original first XA. And you can adjust it's an aperture priority, and you can adjust the aperture manually. So,
but I'm thinking of the stylus.
The stylus is the one my daughter has. The XA was
XA,
the first generation.
Too. Yeah, I still have an XA somewhere over my shoulder on the right side with a flash too, as well. Yeah. I've had a couple of those. Those were really nice cameras. They look so cool too.
Yeah, that's part of and then I don't know how much I'll really use them, because we have this big infatuation with twin lenses in this house right now, so I'd have to work that out of my system. It was nice to have, but that little metal Canon, I forgot what it's called, the half frame, I want to call it EE17, something like that. I think it's called.
I don't know that one.
So it's
just an Olympus pen was a half frame, yeah.
Yep.
The original one, yeah. Wow, I actually remember that.
Olympus pen, and then around the same time the Olympus Trip 35, which I have that too. Actually, our friend Mark has. I lent it to him kind of indefinitely, keep it for as long as he wants. Yeah. But that's a full frame, and it's kind of cute too, because you can adjust zone focus.
Yeah. Oh.
And and it's 40 millimeter lens. Great.
So if you pick up these cameras there, are you going to buy film and try it out there too?
I don't know if I'll bring film home with me. I don't know that I'll be shooting film, because my plan is very ambitious. I want to create multiple zines out of this trip. So
right.
I got to put my head down, and I know I'm going to be obsessive. If New York taught me one thing, it's when you're there, carpe diem.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
So I'm going to do my best to just use my Fuji gear and just hammer away and get as much as I can. So
remind us when you're going again.
Going at the end of March 2025.
Oh, okay, so
it's will be hopefully the Orange Blossom Cherry Blossom Festival.
Sakura Festival. Yeah. We'll have to stack up in a couple of episodes before you take off. So
yeah, okay,
something like that.
By the time you hear this, I will already.
Right, I will come back. We have to do like what they do on the Fuji Cast. Yeah, they seem to do that. Anyway. Well, awesome. All right, cool. What was I about to say? I forgot. I was gonna make a link of when you were talking about film, but I'll bring that up later. I was going to talk about the Lost Roles, but I'll segue into that a little later. Right. Yeah. What's going on here? Good question. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
No, because I got a bunch of things to say, and I'm like, well, should I say that or not? Yeah, why not? This is a personal podcast. Stuff like that. I actually have a girlfriend now.
Get out of town.
No, I'm not. We met online in April, and we've been corresponding, doing a pen pal back and forth, and one thing led to another, and she's at a distance, and so we've been having a long distance relationship, but she's going to be coming to town in a week from tomorrow and spending my birthday with me. And we're going to go around. I'm going to lend her my XT20 and probably 1855. She knows photography. She had a photography business at some point. Yeah. So we're going to do the tourist thing in New York City for my birthday. We're going to go around we're going to take a cruise around the city on the what's called the Circle Line, which is something I've never, ever done I've lived in New York all my life. And I watched this boat go around in circles, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to do that one day. 60 years later.
Yeah, 60 years later.
It's finally going to do that.
Yeah.
So,
well, you said you were looking up on the web of, things to do around New York.
Yeah.
I suggested for the jaded New Yorker.
Yeah. And that's literally a thing to do around New York. It's around New York. So anyway, I wanted to mention that because I know people are following, have been following me throughout a whole bunch of time, and following my trajectory and stuff like that through the death of my wife and stuff, and just this whole thing. And it's fun to come back with some good news, or I wouldn't say good news, but just, just a positive energy. And I've really shifted how I feel in my life. So, and that affects everything. I mean, that affects my photography. That affects my teaching. Speaking of teaching, I had a bunch of classes last week. I did a double header. That was a little hard. It's like, I can't remember what the class was. It was just basically intro to digital photography. But I've been filling up the classes, which is really kind of fun. Good. Yeah, and I am working on. I said this before, but I'm hoping that we get a track of classes so that people can come and do there might be people who apply to the classes, and we do a portfolio and or an interview with them, and then pick a handful, and then run a series of classes, and at the end certify them. Certified photographer. I get to certify them, and I'm hoping that is something that can happen budget allowing. We'll see at the place Brick. But
cool.
In the meantime, I did 3 classes, and what's interesting about I'm doing the intro to digital photography, which is really I want to say it's my baby, but it's next to the street photography. This is also my baby, and I've chosen how to approach teaching people. I now have, I want to say my spiel, because it is kind of a spiel, but and what was really cool is that both classes, one was at Brick and one was at the library. Oh, and the one at the library filled up. I've never had a class this filled before. There was, it sounds like that's not a lot of people. I had 14 people show up. Usually I get 6 or 8, which is fine. That's a decent sized class. This filled up so much that I was running out of seats, and I was a little worried that the library they would fill up. But anyway, they were both the same class, and at the end of each class, the students applauded. Wow. And I was like, it's not an ego thing for me. although I can't say that it's not entirely, it's really kind of humbling when somebody, when a group of people, like I'm just teaching and I'm not expecting people to applaud, and it's just like, okay, thanks, goodbye, but they applauded. And what it made me realize is that, first of all, I know what I want to do. Like I really enjoy instruction and teaching. And the second part of that is like I know who I am when I'm doing this. Like I realize that I'm presenting the information in a way that A is comfortable for me, and B, for the people listening, they are enjoying it. It's like, if I can turn them onto photography with the style of teaching that I do, or get them even just a bit more interested in, they come up to me at the end, always like, what are the classes you're teaching? What are the classes you're teaching? And like, that means a lot to me. And it also means that if I can spark a little bit more interest in photography, is just rather than just being this thing that they do with their cameras.
Right.
It means the world to me, So, again, it's not a pat myself on the back, although there's a part of it we're saying like there's an affirmation that I know the way I'm doing this is the right way. Like, I get a curriculum sheet from the place that I'm working at, not the library, because that's my own, but from Brick. And it says, for 20 minutes, 10 minutes introduction, 20 minutes, talk about photography, 2 hours, go out and photograph. Right. And I take that thing and I'm like, why are you giving this to me? And I crumble it up, I throw it out. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this my way, because the whole point of this is to teach them something new, right? And get really excited by it. So anyway, I just want to put that out there, because it makes me feel really good, and the affirmation is good. And I know that I'm going in the direction that I want to go in. Like, if I'm going to do anything, teaching is just the best thing. And I know people are going to say, those who can't teach or whatever, that's a load of Sorry, that's the second word. That's the second. So there we go.
3 strikes and we're out.
Yeah, it's a bunch of hooey.
So folks are able to like review, right? These courses, or
how do you mean?
Well, to give some feedback back to the library.
Yes.
And so I'm just wondering if people are seeing these, are people able to see the reviews on the website and see that this is a popular?
I don't think
cool
they have
course?
the review. Yeah, I don't think they do reviews on either website, which is kind of. The library, I understand, because the library is a bureaucratic mess and stuff like that, and so I think it would be hard for them to do that. Brick, that should be something they should do, but they have they're a little slow in catching on to things like that. It would require a bit of infrastructure, but yeah, it'd be great to have reviews, because then people would just, like, for any of the classes too, because there's a lot of other good classes there that people teach. And I think they want, what I'm going to write an email to the guy tomorrow, or maybe Thursday,
because it's a driver. It's
an incentive too, and that's one of the things they want, is they want to get butts in the chairs. So, so yeah. Anyway, it was for me, it's like a high. It's just, I come out of a 3-hour class. I'm exhausted sometimes, just because I put a ton of energy into it, and it's really well worth it. So yeah, that's my that's my photography stuff. What was I going to say? It was shoot. What was I photographing? Something else. Darn it, I forgot. I haven't been doing as much. I bring my cameras with me sometimes, but I'm doing as much like systematic walking around and photographing as I would like to. But it's been a little slow. But I'm getting books. I know you've got books. What you said you how is that book of the Japanese street photographer, the women?
Yeah,
street
the
photographers?
book's called "I'm So Happy You're Here: Japanese Women Photographers from the 1950s to Now."
Yeah,
and it is not just portfolios of 15 female Japanese photographers like you might expect. It starts with a history lesson, and it talks about they're calling it a restorative history of female photographers in Japan. And these 15 are 15 that they've chosen, but they're no means all there is. It's it helps shape the way you think about Japanese women photographers.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of talk about, basically patriarchal attitude within the art community as a whole in Japan,
mm-hmm.
and the difficulties that women have had breaking into the market and that sort of thing. So it's a kind of a sobering lesson up front. And then there's the portfolios or the representative works from the different photographers,
mm-hmm.
which are great, and
mm-hmm.
they have a feeling of the female point of view, and in the context of Japanese culture. And in a way, this book reminds me of another book called what's it called? It's a South and Central American volume. It's a huge book. It's a collection of photographers from Mexico all the way down to Argentina. And the point of it, the reason why they raised money to create that book is because there aren't very good archives for film in South America, and that their media will all eventually be destroyed because of the high humidity and the lack of real good archive facilities. So they decided to put this book together, and it's, this huge volume, and it's in part to preserve that Central and South American legacy. And it's a great idea. And it's also a history lesson. Here are these people from this part of the world. Here's what they've done, male and female. And in the same way, creating this restorative history, as they've coined the term. And this is the same thing. I'm so happy you're here. It's providing you with this, the sobering lesson in the history of it. And, the struggle's still not over. I mean, there are shows that happen in Japan where, female photographers, the curator says they're going to have female photographers in the exhibit, and the male photographers want to pull out. It's like, it's garbage.
Really?
It's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible.
What the heck? They've
got to change the attitude there. And so there's a part of me that's going to see when I'm in Japan, what I can see and what I'm going to seek out, and see if I can find some female photographers out on the street while I'm there. I'd be happy to try and converse with them and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's the book, and I've just finished it. I haven't gone through the bibliography. It's really exhaustive. So it is like a university course, basically, this book.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's parts of it are quite strident, as I expect. It might be when, people have gone through these hardships in order to get seen. But no, and then you've got the joy of the actual work itself. So, no, it was good. It was good. It took some trouble to get here, shipping and all that kind of stuff. I had told you guys in our Discord server that duties and taxes and shipping and extra charges, it's not good. But I'm glad I have it, and I'm glad I've got it in my library.
Oh, well, cool. I might have to take a look at that. Hopefully the shipping costs won't be such a problem if I decide to get it. I think it might. I wonder if it's available on Amazon.
It is. Anyway, I'm looking at the Amazon listing right now.
Oh, it's on. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of books, I got a couple more that dropped between last show and this show. I think I'd ordered them a while back, and one is second volume of Matt Black. I think we talked about it, right? Mm-hmm. American Geography.
Yeah.
And there was a second volume, which I had seen at the ICP Book Fest that I went to earlier this year. Mm-hmm. I just didn't pick it up because I ended up spending most of my money on the Trent Park Minutes to Midnight book. So, but it popped up in an email, this Matt Black book, and from a place in the UK. So I purchased it. It's called American Artifacts. So I didn't read it yet, and I can't pick it up now because my hands are all red, and the book is pure white. Right, his first book is all black, which he signed. Actually, the first book He signed. I bought it from his website when I first heard about him, and then this is just from the publisher. So I got this, but it's a collection of artifacts, I guess, during his trip for the other book, and it's like pages of like found work gloves, and they're all sort of what's the word? Not silhouetted,
composited, all put together.
They're all composited into like one giant grid of gloves, or one giant grid of just found objects that are all the same, like soda bottles or something like that. And so it reminds me of some like early Walker Evans work, and even Irving Penn's work, like when he was doing the found cigarettes and stuff like that. Although it's not, then it also reminds me of the typologies of the Beschers, this collection of stuff. And I really resonate with the collection stuff. I mean, I love to talk about, or even for myself, using photography as a way to collect things.
I've got an aside to that. In the Japanese book, there's a woman, Tomoko Sawada. She has a project called ID 400, and it's basically 400 passport pictures of her dressed up in different outfits, and it's all her, and there's 400 pictures of her. And there's, in the book, is this grid, this 20 by 20 grid, these tiny pictures of her, different hairstyles, different clothing. It was interesting. It was interesting collection of product of process and view. It's very cool.
Hearing that reminds me of that Walker Evans shot of the picture of the photo studio, and it just says studio on it, and it's like it's got it's a grid of like 100, 200 people in different like little thumbnail shots or something like that. But this is, you're talking, it's her, so that's making self portraits like that. That's really interesting. The other book I got was, what's his name? Harry, pronounce him for me.
I want to say Gray Art.
Gray Art, yeah.
Gray Art, yeah.
And I forgot the name of it already. I just can't touch it. Hang on. Shoot. I can pick it up. It is called,
put your gloves on,
Homeland.
Homeland, yeah.
So it's a collection of color and black and white stuff. I think I might have one of his other books, but his work is sort of a deep dive. I haven't looked through either one of those books in full yet, but I'm looking forward to it. It's nice to have these again. My book collection now, I blame on you in terms of like, it's nice now. It's like I got a nice collection now, so
good.
I'm very happy with it. So
it's gonna get bigger.
Yeah, there we go. Motorcycles. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to say, tomorrow I'm doing this thing at Photoville. If anybody knows what Photoville is, it's like an organization that, how do I summarize Photoville?
They organize. They're an international organization. Actually,
they are.
That
yes,
sets up exhibits in free public spaces all around the world.
Thank you.
They come here. They're usually here in February. They have a huge canvas that wraps around a whole city block of images.
Call it the fence, right?
The fence, yeah.
The fence, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just
okay.
I'd like to submit one year. Like to submit some of my work for consideration there.
I've had stuff on the fence a couple times, so it's kind of fun. It's a nice experience because they print them really large and they put them in different parts of the city here. Mm-hmm. And in the summer, Photoville will have a big photo festival in Brooklyn Bridge Park, and the cool thing about it is that all the galleries and spaces in this outdoor park are inside of shipping containers. And so it becomes like this little village that you can, like a photo village. It's really kind of fun. I didn't go this year, unfortunately. I'll probably go next year if I can. But anyway, they're doing they're doing an education lab tomorrow, and I'll just mention it quickly because it led me to something else. It's just called Catalyst of Change, and I'll just read what it is. Is Photoville, in partnership with Photo Wings and St. Anne's Warehouse, invites educators to explore the topic of civic education and visual media literacy with an emphasis on visual arts and photography. So it sounded like a nice all day kind of session on. They're going to be talking about visual media literacy and critical thinking and media analysis and just a bunch of stuff that I think I can tuck away for future education opportunities, especially with.
We could certainly use the visual literacy part.
That's the one I'm really kind of leaning towards because it's missing in a lot of places, at least the circles that I walk around. Especially that's what I'm doing with my classes. I've sort of taken pains to include visual literacy in a little bit of it in a digital photography class because again, it's not just about taking pictures, right? It's got to be able to read what you're looking at. So anyway, that led me when I was looking through the website. It led me through. I wanted to mention. I don't know if anybody knows about this, but led me to a website and sort of a project called Lost Roles America. And Lost Roles America is, it is, let me just go to the about. I'm just going to read it quickly. Hang on a second. I got gigabit internet, and it actually takes time to load here. So I'll just read it because instead of trying to, so the Lost Roles America project opens the magical reencounter with the past to anyone who possesses unprocessed film rolls. Contributors provide one roll of film, which is developed and scanned free of charge by Fujifilm North America Corporation and made available back to them. Participants then choose one image and in a small write-up explore the meaning of the photo and the significance of reviewing a piece of their personal, sometimes lost past. So it's essentially you if you have an old roll of film that was in a drawer someplace, you can send it to Lost Roles America and they will process it, scan it, you pick a picture, and then they will send you a questionnaire which you can then write about that photograph. And this whole project was started by photographer, photojournalist, who's on the show, by the way, with me and Tom, Ron Haviv.
Back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, and the project stems from here, I'll just say this. The inspiration for this national project grows from a book by award-winning photojournalist Ron Haviv, who processed over 200 rolls of his own undeveloped analog film that had been put aside and forgotten over the years. Those images, some dating back over 2 decades, were collected in his book, The Lost Rolls, which feature moments from Haviv's professional career, like political events and historical crises, as well as personal figures from the photographer's own life. The photographs bear evidence of light leaks, pooling dye, mold, and other vagaries of time, and taken together present a mesmerizing visual display of Haviv's once lost past. So I'll put the link in the show notes. It's at lostrolesamerica.com, and you can participate there, and they have an archive there of this great selection of pictures, all sorts of different quality and subject matter, and you click on it, and the questionnaire is asking who took the picture. What did you think about it when you saw it processed? Was it what you were expecting? It's a whole bit of stuff that people can dive into their old shots. And I was just looking at this, thinking about actually maybe participating because there's some film someplace in a drawer someplace. That anyway, I wanted to share this with everybody because I thought, I don't know if you knew about it. And I'm guessing this is not like an original project. I mean,
I've heard about something similar in Europe and the UK somewhere where somebody found some 35 millimeter film in the ground in some World War II battlefield or something, and it was processed, and they were looking around the country to see if they could identify the military unit that was associated with it and who the photographer might have been. And that's what when you had mentioned it to me before, that's what I was thinking.
I see. Yeah.
But this Ron Haviv project is something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it also reminded me of another project, and I'm not remembering it entirely well, but it has something to do with lost film or like photos that just don't have owners anymore, like found pictures yard sales and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's got that kind of anonymous, although this is not anonymous, the people are posting, their own pictures, so you know who they are, but it kind of has that feel to it, this collection of, in this case, I'm not sure if it's Americana, but just like people's, memories and history and what it means to them, and the fact that they didn't know what was on the rolls of film sometimes or something. And I thought there was something really cool about that bit of discovery, even with your own, with your own pictures and stuff. Right. So anyway, I wanted to make sure that I shared.
Well, there's the Anonymous Project. That's what I'm thinking.
The Anonymous Project. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
And that was they had a book that came out a few years ago. Yeah. Called Mid-Century Memories. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And who wrote that, or who compiled it? Why do I know it's
together by Lee Schulman, Rel Golden, and Richard Woodward.
Okay. Yeah,
and that book came out in 2019. I've wanted to buy it, and I keep it's not there, and then it's there, and then it's $40 more expensive than it was.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it is. Let's see, who publishes it? I want to say it's either Aperture or Taschen. Maybe it's Taschen.
I think it's Taschen, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's what I think I was thinking of when I saw this. So it's a nice Haviv's project here is a nice twist on it too, because there's some anonymousness to it in a way that, like, you don't know what's going on in the pictures, and you may not remember who the people are in the pictures, but anyway, it's kind of cool. So. So guess what? I dove into. Remember last time we talked about GBT giving us some ideas? Yeah. I used it again, and it's interesting because it's almost like having that that assistant who can bounce ideas off of. And I know you and I are running sort of different lives inside, so we have a hard time always communicating. Mm-hmm. So when it kind of comes time to do a show, sometimes it's sometimes fun to throw in to the GBT soup and say, help me figure some stuff out. So what I did was I threw in a bunch of our show notes into it, and I said, here's what we've been doing. What are we missing? And with some prompting and stuff like that, they came up with some really good ideas. So I like it. So for full disclosure, like if we were taking pictures and we were using AI, and it would say, this shot was manipulated by AI. And I liked your idea of, full disclosure, like, this part of the show, the idea came up with the help of ChatGPT, but I really liked it. I really liked the concepts it came up with. So how do we start this?
Why don't we just read the title that the language model gave us?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Passion or Plateau: How to Keep Photography Fresh Without Burning Out.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot because I think
what
you and I
both
because I think you and I both experienced it. You work on the street and you have a shtick, and then it gets comfortable. You're like, well, why do my pictures always look the same?
Right.
What can I do to shake out of it? And it's I think it's something, if you do it long enough over a period of years, you kind of lose, if you're the person who tends to go out without, Ralph Gibson's point of departure. You're going out and you're doing the same thing you did before. Mm-hmm. You're going to get the same thing you got before.
Right. It was, I was thinking, actually, as you're saying that, I was remembering, did we talk about Stephen Shore's transformation from the 8x10 to the drone photography?
Oh,
last episode. Yeah.
because because you'd seen so much drone material before, you're wondering if it was,
but this is not in relation to that. I was just wondering if, like, for him there was a burnout as well, and we decided that we're going to try something new, whether it's with a new piece of equipment or a new lens or something that's going to pull us into some other way of seeing the world, and to try to avoid burning out,
right.
So that we can, because burning out for me could be just putting the camera on the shelf, and I've done that before.
Yeah.
I used to do it with my when I was doing stock and stuff like that. I think stock really burned me out in photography in general because I ended up only thinking about photography in terms of how can I use it to make money. And there was nothing fulfilling in that. And, traveling to different places was a lot of fun, but it wasn't, there wasn't anything fulfilling about it. And that can really burn, I think at that time it burned me out. That's why I was so happy when I ended up finding street photography, because it became this new thing that was totally the opposite of any kind of commercial work,
Yeah, and it's really hard.
It is really hard. And I've in a sense almost burned out on that a little bit too, for multiple reasons. Well, what else was it that resonated in this sense for you?
And aside to that too, there are gaps in my practice, right? The wintertime, I am really not photographing much at all. And so there's an enforced layoff, right? Yeah. So I have this kind of enforced layoff. And I read my books, and I this winter I'll be planning my trip to Japan and making notes and doing some stuff alongside of the actual act of shooting, right? It's like pre-production on a movie,
right.
You do all this legwork, and then when you're out shooting, you're as efficient as you can be. And I love that. I like the idea of doing all this planning ahead, so that
you do that often, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Because but you're how do I say this? You pre-planned in some way when you're coming to New York. You pre-planned when you go to the Stampede. Mm-hmm. You're pre-planning for Japan. You did it for Mexico.
Yeah.
Do you do that all the time for any time you're shooting, or
pretty much?
It doesn't make really okay.
Yeah. Or even when I go to Hand Hills Lake, I that small town rodeo that I go to all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, where's the sun going to be? When do the events start? Oh, maybe I should be here. Maybe if I go, one thing I did this last year was on the Friday, which is called Slack, which is the day that the crowd is not quite there, and it's for the competitors who have to be elsewhere on the weekend. And if they have to go to some other rodeo, so they come early so they can get their competition in, and then they can take off. Well, there was no bull riding or anything, so I could go behind the chutes and shoot towards where the animals are coming out of the chutes at the other end. And it was great. And I'd never done that before in 20 years of shooting there. And you find these things, and if you don't plan, you're just shooting the same thing. So
yeah. Well, but coming back to this subject a little bit, if you're not planning, then you're also going to be trying something that you haven't tried before, right? And there's a bit of an excitement or experimentalness in that in itself, and that also could be of help if one is experiencing some sort of creative, for lack of a better phrase, is burnout. Go into something brand new rather than what would happen if you didn't plan,
Yeah.
That's your thing, but is that your repetitive thing? Is that an old pattern? Is that an old habit?
I could end up having my Tokyo pictures look exactly like my Calgary pictures. That would be sad. I'm doing the same, you can't have that.
No. So what do you, I could tell you what I do. I sometimes try. So I can't remember if I mentioned this, so forgive me, everybody. But when the auroras were going crazy, even down here in New York, I told you, right? People are showing me pictures on their phone, and it's like, holy crap. So I run up to the roof. I barely see anything, but I get a shot. But I'm up on the roof, and it's dark up there, and I'm like, what else am I going to do up here, right? I'm sitting up here, I've got a camera on a tripod, and I was like, well, you know what? What if I just try some light painting, which I haven't done in a zillion years. And so I turned the camera around to the roof, and I was wearing black anyway, with a black jacket on and stuff like that. And a hoodie. So I put the hoodie up, and I've got my phone with the light, and I turn it on, and I do a 40-second, 50-second exposure. And I walk around the roof painting all the little vents and stuff like that. And, of course, because it's digital, I can see immediately how it worked out, which is such a great thing. I remember doing this with film. I had no idea how the light painting came out until the film came back.
Yeah.
So I started to get a little ambitious with that. As I started seeing the results of this, I pushed it a little further and a little further. And of course, during this whole process, I was saying, I'm not sure why I'm not doing this more often.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why am I not taking the camera to someplace safe, quote unquote, it's just in the dark and setting it. Well, there aren't a lot of very dark places in New York City, but still, like there's so much satisfaction. So what I ended up doing as well was I set up the exposure for a long period, and I went out with my light and I spelled my girlfriend's name backwards. I did it backwards as I was facing the camera.
Yeah.
And then when I got the results, you could read her name in it. It was a little jumbly, but
but
you could read it.
Make it
and
up,
I thought, so I emailed it to her, and she was so happy about that. And I realized, like, this was a lot of fun. Like, I've never ever done something. Well, that's not true, but I remember one time a while back in our group, and we were kind of, I can't remember what the context was, but I don't know if you remember, I started doing light painting in my kitchen, on my dining table. I think it was something that Dave sort of, I don't know if he sparked it, but like there was some discussion. And so I set up my camera on my table and turned all the lights off. And I just found objects in my house. And I used also my iPhone as the light source. And I painted these objects on like a still life shot. And, totally not anything I've ever done before. Although I used to do still life, but I never did kind of light painting before.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was this, I guess it was an experiment, maybe not a full, like, kind of crazy experiment. It was just, it's so much different than street photography. And yet it was really satisfying. So, but those little bursts, I don't know for you, but those little bursts don't seem to stick for me.
No, but they do shake it up. Like you do, like the year before now, when I was photographing those women, right? My mother and my aunt who died and my friend who I've known for many years. I had to put my brain in a different context, a different headspace to shoot portraits. And the one who was very poignant, my aunt who was dying, and her care room. So I'm shooting around her environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's very different than trying to get grab shots of people on the street.
Yeah.
So I'm working different muscles, and it did kind of wear me out. And I have these pictures which I haven't shown anybody that are going to come out at some point, but I want to know what I'm going to do with them in a dignified way that's going to be good for them before I put them out there. So that was a great shakeup, I thought. Because
how does that filter into your coming back and doing street photography? Like,
well, because
it's kind of a detour, but does it affect your?
Well, it's a reminder that the medium can be very powerful and affecting. And so I can be less flippant about what I'm shooting. It goes to the economy of what I shoot, waiting for there to be an actual. I mean, I think I noticed that at the Calgary Stampede Midway this year. I think I caught deeper human moments. I was not afraid to be closer than I was. Wasn't afraid to wait until there was that gesture where I tend to like, oh, these people in the right place. Oh, I'll take a picture. It was more, okay, we wait. Oh, look, there's, they're interacting, or they're both looking at me all at that moment. Okay, now I'll get the picture. Just the stakes are higher. Make the stakes higher. Make it harder.
How would you let me think about this question here. How would you decide to shake up your let me go back to this. So you feel like you're burning out. You're doing the same thing over and over again. How do you pick something else to do to shake yourself up? Now, you had this idea for this project of photographing these women, so that was already in your bag, as it were. But if you didn't have that, and you were finding yourself, okay, I'm wandering a street, I'm taking the same shot, that I've shot day after day, month after month. It's just with different people in different situations. How do you figure out how to stir things up? It's like, in a way, you don't know what you don't know, right? I don't know, like, am I just going to like open up a photography book and point to a subject and say, I'm going to try this? I mean, I don't want to do that because I may not like of course, there's something to be said for photographing, to work in a genre that you don't like, because that would press things.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about something more realistic, you know, like you're not going to open up the book and suddenly, you put your finger on boudoir photography and like, oh shoot. Yes, that would be a challenge.
But it could be a jumping off point. Like, so it's, if you can't think of anything, think of something is what I would always say. And what's I don't know what I want to take pictures of. Okay. Well, what do you like? Just ask some basic questions. I like trees. Oh, okay. It's fall. Well, it's past fall, a little past fall here.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. But
okay. I don't have very many pictures of trees. I'm just going to go out, take pictures of trees and leaves and see if I can make, I can work some abstract nature shots, see what I can do there. Mm-hmm. It's one day of investment, maybe an hour, maybe a couple of hours. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay. Maybe there's something you saw when you're in that walk that interests you more. Oh, cars. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's walk around, or I don't know, find a car show, or you know what I mean? Like, just do something. Like I did, like this summer, I took pictures of those cars. I had the twin lens. I wanted to run a roll of film through it. I didn't know what I was going to shoot. Oh, there's this car show. Well, I like cars enough to shoot them, and they'd be interesting. The detail in them would be interesting in medium format, I think. Be different than shooting them in digital. So why don't I try that? And I love those pictures. They're great, and they're very still at the same time as being dynamic as, techno sculpture that cars are.
Yeah.
You find something, what you like, just try it. And like I say,
but what if you don't know? So I hear I'm like, sound like I'm interviewing you about this,
no,
but
right.
I'm also like, this is the kind of thing I get stuck with as well, because like, someone might say, what is it that you really like? And I'm like, I really have no idea. Like, I don't know, where did I see this someplace? Some prompt someplace about what would be your ideal assignment? What would be your ideal like photo project that you would like to do? And strangely enough, for me, I don't know where this comes from, I would have loved to get on an aircraft carrier and photograph the flight deck of an aircraft carrier.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It's and pretty much an impossible thing to do.
Yeah,
in a way, but like
you'd have to be a Navy photographer to do that.
Yeah,
well, we have the opening sequence of Top Gun. That'll
that's
help
right
to get us through.
I don't know what I want. Like, street photography is there. I do it. It's almost like walking. It's a habit. I do bird photography because I did that this weekend because I needed to chill, and bird photography fills that
it's
a bit
also
of a couple.
Very hard.
It is hard, and I am not even close to being good. I'm waiting for the birds to land. It's to try to photograph them in flight. Either that or I photograph a heron in flight because they fly so slow, and it's like, okay. But I do that for a particular reason. What's really interesting is these are all the same things. Like, I'm feeling down or I need to relax. I'll put on the 150 to 600. I'll drive over to Greenwood and photograph birds. Mm-hmm. I won't go to Prospect Park. I won't go to Marine Park, although those would offer opportunities, maybe a little bit more challenging because I'm not used to those places. So that would kind of spark those a little bit because I'm getting so repetitive and used to like, oh, I know where the birds are in Prospect in Greenwood Cemetery. So there's very little challenge there. So I know I like that. I like, I've got my little things that I like to do, but the part of figuring out like what would be the other thing to do. I mean, I did make some talk. Maybe I did it on the show or with you earlier on, just after Elizabeth died, and I was like thinking about getting back in photography. Like portraiture was kind of like ringing around in my head a little bit. like doing portrait sessions, kind of being like my version of Irving Penn. Again, sorry, I bring up Irving Penn a bunch of times today, but I love his portraits. I love all of his studio work, and that idea of doing that, not headshots, but like really, like what would it take to dive into a portrait session to really pull out personality of somebody that I'm photographing. That would be really, that's so unlike, well, I guess in some sense it's related to street photography because it's people, but it would be very unlike what I usually do.
For me, it would be to be Peter Lindbergh, right?
Lindbergh,
street fashion.
Street fashion, yeah.
So you have the people, and then you have you're going to get those subjects that they're contracted to be there, or you hire a model and they're there, and then you just have them walking down the street, and then you use your street chops to come up with a pleasing. With
you were planning to do that.
I know. I've been planning for years.
Okay. Was that because of this? Because of like to keep you in some way fresh and not doing the same thing all the time, or you just had a general passion to want to do that?
It's from getting those Vogue Italias from the late 80s and early 90s, the age of the supermodel, right? So, and that's Peter Lindbergh actually coined the term supermodel. So,
I didn't know that.
It's not about the subject so much. It's about the way it's fashion, but it's also getting towards art, which I liked.
Yeah.
And it was not just frivolous fashion. It wasn't runway work, and it wasn't just ad for ad's sake. There was a certain Euro art formality to it that's really appealing.
Yeah.
That I'd like to try and emulate.
That's sort of like what really pulls me in about Avedon's work too. It was like that fashion art crossover.
And early Gordon Parks too.
Yep.
Same thing.
Yeah. We should do a show on these guys because I think that kind of stuff would be great to talk about in condensed way.
Absolutely.
I love that. When someone says, what kind of pictures do you like? And I go through my books and I pull out a David LaChapelle book. Like,
that's what? Over the top, buddy.
I've always loved over the top photography. I mean, there would be like, if I opened up here's the photography I would like to do over the top. I wouldn't even know how to begin with that, but that would be sort of, talking
not
about
just
getting
to
out
get
of a
it,
rut.
but to light it.
To light it, yeah. But then how to incorporate these, what is the core thing that we do, right? What is the core thing that I'm used to doing? And how do I incorporate these little diversions, if we call them that? And it may not be fair to call them that because it could be a whole nother way to do work. But, how do we incorporate any of these things into our core to push us forward? And it sounds like you're
just do the little, just do move in that one direction. Like you don't have to, the creating the product that you want to do is hard enough. I think making decisions, there's nothing at stake until you move in that direction, right? You do this thing, it's an hour, this is boring, this is stupid, I'm stopping. That's fine. You write that off, you learn from it, but keep your eyes open for something that does interest you. I mean, my son discovered just trash in the street, and he gets a huge kick out of it. And he's creating aesthetically interesting work of a subject matter that I couldn't care less about. But it's like, I'm not going to shoot that. Yeah, I'm glad somebody else is shooting it.
Doing it. Yeah, yeah.
Like Anthony Hernandez, the book I have of his, which is, that same kind of color stuff left behind by unhoused people. Like it's it's very moving, and he's taking that I'm going to call it unattractive or not the kind of subject matter that you would expect, and turning it into a human story of that has deeper meaning.
Right. In that case, it's also the stuff we walk by every day, but we don't pay attention to.
That's right.
We choose not to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, coming into winter. Yeah. I know you sound like you're gonna, hibernate a little bit, which makes sense. I like to go out and photograph in the cold, but my winter is not as uncomfortable as yours in terms of that.
And there's the odd event or something that you go to where you shoot inside, or you see something like when Mark and I used to go shoot, when we used to go out in the wintertime when it wasn't too cold or too slushy to walk around, and the sun is so low, and at lunchtime, the light comes barreling down the streets,
that's a favorite.
Long shadows,
that's a favorite of mine, especially like at noon here. The sun's coming down. It's usually from the south, and so the lines are really straight and stuff like that. It's interesting that this topic came up through Chat GBT and stuff like that, because I've been thinking about this for a while, because I did my project on my neighborhood. I did my street. Like, what's next? What am I going to do next? Like, what is the next thing? I can keep taking pictures of my neighborhood, which I do, because why not? I do street photography when I see the subject that I want to photograph or is interesting, and I do that. But like, what's next? What's the next thing? And I don't know what that is, and I'm not sure how to find it exactly. And I don't want to put my camera on the shelf. Although sometimes, like taking time off. You've
got life changes happening here, so
I do have
and you've got the camera around your neck, and you're going to be going around on that boat, and you're going to have your X100 on you, and you'll shoot, and there may be something you see, like there'll be
just trying to be open to it. I just don't know what to be open to, but that's
maybe. I guess if it make it self-evident, like I said,
it'll make it self-evident.
If you worry about it, then you're putting a lot of weight on it, and then you're like, for me, I'm just too lazy to put that much energy into worrying. So like, go this direction, go that direction.
I'm going to try not to worry about it, because I will be not distracted, but there'll be a new when my girlfriend comes to town, it'll be a new experience, and part of that might be also being a tourist in my own town. Like walking around New York and looking at it from sort of like when you and I were walking around. And, a little bit of
trying to get you to shut up, because I'm trying to take pictures. And I have a kind of a similar experience about being a tourist in my hometown. There was a business revitalization board, part of the city. They were offering a restaurant tour of the southeast part of the city. And you got on a school bus, like on a bus, and then they took you from this restaurant to that restaurant, and you're wandering around like you're a clueless tourist. And it was amazing. It was like, oh yeah. And then we settled, and we had this big meal from this Portuguese restaurant, and it was like, oh man, it was so good. And I'm like, this is the town, this is the city I live in. Lived here. By then I'd lived there, 30 years. And like, I don't know about any of this stuff, and now I do. So it was
that's interesting. I was thinking, as you were talking about, like, maybe I'll go buy like a I Love New York jacket or something like that, and put a New York Yankees hat on, and try to do whatever a tourist would do, like wear stuff and like really fit the part, and then walk around and see like, what is it like to try to walk in the shoes of somebody who's not seen New York before. Anyway. It'll be interesting. Because I've never seen the city from the water like that. I mean, occasionally I have, but like not as a systematic thing. I mean, that's just looking at the city. So,
and you're going to be pointing at the buildings in that one and this one and that one.
Right. But I'm also going to be on the boat too, and I'm thinking about all those kind of pictures. If the light is right and whatever, but people sitting inside of a ferry or whatever, like the idea of like this enclosed space that can also. All right, that's an interesting.
You can go back and forth. Even too, for me, go back and forth from the phone to the main camera too, which is fun.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's a little mini shake up you can do.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. I got a plan. I'll be happy to share that when. We have to think about the timing of the schedule, because. Well, we'll figure out what the next show is, and we'll have some time.
Yeah,
I'll
let me know. I'm fairly open here.
All right. Okay, I think we covered a lot of stuff. I feel like I've just had a big, long coffee or beer with you, so that's kind of what I wanted. Yeah.
All right.
What do you think? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think it's good. I think with the menace that AI might be, I think it provides us with options that, like you say, it's the assistant that we can bounce ideas off of, and. In this respect, I think it worked out.
And just
really
prompting us too, like having that outside voice to help us look inwards about what is it about photography that we find interesting, or the challenges of it. I kind of like that. So, yeah. So thumbs up for AI and so on. But I like our disclosure. I'm all for doing that so people understand where that's coming from. But none of our voices are not AI, as far as I know.
Not yet.
No. All right.
That synchrony was just a little bit ill-timed there.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. So, where's the world looking for you these days?
Oh, where can I be found? I can be found someplace. I can be found, according to the internet, I can be found on Vero and Twitter /X at WRosinPhoto. Instagram, which is where I post most of my stuff in my stream of consciousness, though it's slow right now because of winter. I'm Ward Rosin Fine Art. Facebook, I am Ward Rosin Photo, and I have my little website, which I still need to shovel my street pictures into, rosin.ca, and the podcast's unofficial sponsor. Ornis Photo. Ornis, ORNIS.photo.
Anything new there?
Anything? No. Still negotiating. I think our country's relationship with China is not helping.
I see.
Not helping right now.
Well,
so
yeah.
And so, Antonio, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me. Let's just look for me on Instagram at AM Rosario Photo, and my website is amrosario.com. Facebook, Rosario Photo, and let's see. Oh, go check. We've been getting a lot of Substack subscribers lately. So, yes, and I know I said I had a newsletter to post. I haven't gotten around to it because I've been talking to my girlfriend on the phone for hours and hours and hours. So,
kids, you teenagers.
I know you. Yeah. So, but our Substack is streetshots.substack.com. So please check us out there. I think that's going to be my main social site for the time. Like once I start getting ramped up again, I think that's going to be the place. But anyway, hey, leave us. We haven't gotten any voicemails from you guys. Come on, give us a call. It takes. Just go to speakpipe.com/streetshots. Do it on your phone. You can leave a, I think, 90-second little voicemail. Tell us about the area code that you live in, so we can add that. And if you want to support the show, just like Justin did, please go to buymeacoffee.com/Antonio Rosario and buy us a coffee. It's really kind of a nice little way to get in touch with and support the show. And I really appreciate Justin he's our honorary producer for the show today. Right? That's
very
great.
Cool.
Yeah. So awesome. So the next show will be after Thanksgiving here in the States. So I will have gained 20 pounds, and
you do what you got to do.
I got to do. We got to eat. So anyway, so everybody, we will see you after Thanksgiving in the United States. Have a good holiday, and do as I say, not as I do. Don't eat too much. No. That's it. And Ward, thanks for hanging out tonight. It was great. It was great. Really
always
great talk. Yeah. And so everybody have a good night and see you in a couple of weeks.
See you later. Good night.